Good evening, everyone. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Karis Circle. Karis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Karis Books, and Karis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We are really excited to be here with all of you tonight to celebrate Adventurous Adeline and the back to school party. We're here with the author, Mary Fashik, in conversation with Anna Cechony. Tonight's event is co-sponsored by our friends at New Disabled South. And I know we're going to have a lot of folks in the community who are connected to New Disabled South. So thank y'all for being here. New Disabled South's mission is to improve the lives of disabled people and build strong disability justice and rights movements in the South. If you somehow don't know about New Disabled South, check them out. I'll drop their information in the chat. They're an incredible partner, an incredible organization. But we are here to celebrate Mary's work. Today is Pub Day. We always love to celebrate books on Publication Day. It is a really special day. It's like a book birthday. And so it deserves the kind of celebration that you would have on a birthday. I'm going to introduce Anna first. Anna is a disability doula, transition coach, and access consultant based in Edmonds, Washington. She works to make becoming and being disabled feel like coming home to a loving, creative community rather than something that is scary, isolating, or shameful. She has her master's in learning and organizational change and certificate in organizational and leadership coaching from Northwestern University and is a board certified coach. She's also an avid sewist, quilter, knitter, and general maker working towards a lifelong goal of being able to build a home and make everything in it with the help of her community. In her personal life, Mary enjoys we might have skipped over. So is it Mary who enjoys or is it Anna who enjoys experimenting in the kitchen? Okay, so somehow your bios got twisted up, but so I'm going to introduce Mary. Mary is a transnational, transracial adoptee, born in Lebanon, and a retired teacher who emphasized the importance of inclusion to her students. She is the founder of the disability justice movement, Upgrade Accessibility, and her activism centers around the principle of intersectionality. Mary is also a Susan M. Daniels Disability Mentoring Hall of Fame inductee and a 3-time award-winning podcaster. And in her personal life, Mary enjoys experimenting in the kitchen and has loved baking since childhood. She's also a big fan of karaoke, bringing joy to her life through singing. So welcome to you both, and welcome to everybody watching. We're so glad you're here. We would love for you. Thank you, Beth Fraser. Beth has put in the chat live human-generated captions. Thank you for doing that. And we would love for anyone who would like to ask a question to put it in the chat at any time. So you're not interrupting. You can put it in and Anna will incorporate it into the conversation. So we encourage you to be as active and lively in the conversation as you would like to be. And also put emojis in. You can clap. You can put hearts. We really want Mary to feel the warmth in this virtual room since this is her special day. So without further ado, why don't we go ahead and emoji clap for Mary and Anna. And I'm going to kick it over to Anna and we're going to begin. So welcome to you both and congratulations, Mary.
Thank you so much, ER. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited to be here with you today and to be celebrating you and Adeline. And I have many questions. I would also love to just echo what ER said, that I love a good virtual chat. So if you have questions as we're going, please ask them, and I will incorporate into what I already have, and we'll have a great conversation here together. But to start off, I would love to know what inspired you to write Adventurous, Adeline?
Like, I was thinking, I've always wanted to write. That is something I've always loved doing. And I was thinking, we have some disabled representation in books. I want brown disabled representation because I think if little Mary had seen Adeline on the cover of a book, it would have been life changing. And I don't think it's being like overdramatic. I really do think it would have been life changing to her to see someone who looks like her on the cover of a book. So I also wanted to incorporate my advocacy in a children's book.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a pretty central, like, as a reader, and I hope that you all get to experience this soon when you get to read the book. You so easily and casually use terms like access needs as part of it. Can you tell me more about like what it was like to include your advocacy in that way?
Yeah. So I will say that it was, I have to ironically advocate to get these terms in the book because you know the idea behind a book is to sell a book, right? And you know it has to be a selling point. And I had to be firm in that I know who my audience is. I know that this will be a selling point. I know that this is important because we need the language surrounding disabled children to change because we're still using terms like special needs and we need it to change. It is access needs. Everyone has special needs. Now, in the first iteration of a book, which did not make it in this book, Adeline's mother says to her, everyone has needs. I wish it had made it in this book, but maybe in the next one. And I think it is in the next one that I'm actually working on as we speak. But the idea is to change the mindset around language, change the mindset of children growing up, disabled children, parents of disabled children, and parents of non-disabled children as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I know that maybe not all of you have the book in front of you yet, but at the end you have a section that's kind of like a glossary of those terms. What I definitely hear in how you're talking about it and just knowing you and how important advocacy is to you, like you want parents and educators to have the tools that they need. And as a former educator, can you talk a little bit about how you see educators being able to use that in their classroom?
Absolutely. We talk about inclusion, right? And we talk about children who are mainstream into classrooms with non-disabled kids. And it's like from kindergarten, I was mainstream into a classroom with non-disabled children. And what children and parents who don't understand, children can be cruel, right? We all know this. And the bullying that I face, not only as a child, but the bullying that I even face living in my current apartment complex by children here because they look at me and they've never seen a disabled adult before. They don't know what that is. They don't understand because maybe the only experience they've had with disability is an older relative. So they equate disability with someone older. So when they see someone like me, they don't understand it. So, and that coolness comes out because it's something they don't understand. And I think teachers using this as the measure of inclusion and just understanding that this book is so important, is so fundamental. I know we are moving away from in the country DEI, DIA, we're moving away from that, but is more important than ever as the number of disabled adults and children continue to grow, that we foster inclusive environments.
Absolutely. And it's such a gift to those parents and educators that you've given in this book to not only include it so easily alongside Adeline having such a fun time with her friend, but also the definitions that they can be like, oh, okay, I know what this means, and I can maybe talk to my kids about it a little bit more. There's so many directions that we can go, and I'm glad that we have so much time together today. But coming back to your experience in school, I would love to know a little bit more about where the idea for the Go Anywhere wheelchair came from.
I love talking about this. This is like my favorite thing to talk about. In eighth grade, there was an initiative, a nationwide initiative in the United States called Invent America. And what it was is in your science class, you had to invent something that would solve a problem, like an everyday problem. And I was like, I went home, I was like, Mom, I'm gonna make a wheelchair that goes upstairs, right? Well, let me tell you why I wanted to make this chair. Because I went to a magnet school that was one of the first magnet schools in Miami. And we were the magnet school for computer, what was it? Computers and applied technology. In other words, I'm old. You know, computers were like a cutting edge thing at the time, you know, and I went to like magnet school and I was the only physically disabled student in the entire school. And there was no elevator. And they had to bring my classrooms downstairs. And I kept getting asked by kids that were not in the magnet program, how did you go upstairs? How did you get upstairs? And I got so tired of being asked, how do you get upstairs? That one day I said, I get out of my wheelchair, I put it on my back, and I go up the stairs.
Did they believe you?
Yeah. They were like, really? I'm like, yeah. So when this project came along about invent something that would solve a problem, I said, I'm going to invent the going or wheelchair. And what it was is exactly how it is described in the book, where there is a piece of plywood under the chair, and you push a button, and it comes out and it makes a ramp that goes in front of you, a ramp up the stairs, and you can go upstairs. So that was my project, and I won an award. I actually have the award right here. I had to dig it out of the archives.
Incredible.
Here it is. And my teacher wrote me a note on the back of the award for the Go Anywhere wheelchair. And I mean, I was never a science person. That year I got an A in physical science because that project was worth 10 grades of the final grade.
Whoa.
So I got all A's. So yeah, but there you go. And I knew when I wrote this book, I was like, if we're going to talk about accessibility and her wanting to make things accessible, and my editor wanting to integrate STEM, I was like, okay, well, we're going to integrate the going in a wheelchair then.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I know just before we opened this live, you talked about how this book has been 3 years in the making, but when I heard that story for the first time, I mean, it's been a lifetime in the making. Like being able to put your experiences in here, and I know that that's also true in how you talk about the friendships in the book. Could you tell us a little bit about how, like, I guess something as a reader that really stuck out to me is that a lot of literature about disabled kids, especially, is about how a non disabled kid kind of takes pity on the disabled kid and they build a friendship. And I loved jumping into Adeline's world where she just has this deep, solid, amazing, interdependent relationship with Maya. And I know that some friendships in your life have also kind of influenced the friendships in the book. Could you tell us a little bit more about how the friendship piece came to be?
So at the beginning of the book, it talks about how Adeline, when she meets Maya, he's surprised that Maya didn't ask her about her wheelchair right off because we know as disabled individuals, and I know personally as a wheelchair user, usually the first thing out of a non-disabled person's mouth, be it a child or an adult, is what's wrong with you or what happened to you. And I didn't want Adeline to have that experience because he experienced that already, I think, at a younger age, and I wanted this relationship to be your average childhood friendship. But when, you know, Adeline is disabled, we are not erasing her disabled identity, but also Maya helps her, but it's not in an overbearing way. So, like talking about when they go to class and Maya is moving things out of the way so Adeline can get to her desk because a lot of classrooms are not accessible in the layout, right? And I always have to sit in the front because I couldn't sit in the back because it wasn't accessible for me to sit in the back. So in back in my day, we had to sit in alphabetical order like in high school. But my last name was F. I would have been at the end of the row. I couldn't put at the end of the row, so I would get stuck at the beginning of the row. You know, and it was like I wanted to make sure that again, like Maya there to help when she needs help, but not be that overbearing, not have that overbearing illustration of Maya doing everything for Adeline. I didn't want that. That was important for me not to have that. And regarding the friendship, so again, I was mainstreamed since kindergarten, but I did have to ride the bus with other wheelchair users. And I have a friend that I have known since we were in elementary school, and he has SMA, which is a form of muscular dystrophy, and he does not have a lot of trunk um like control. And when we would go around the corner, she would end up leaning to one side. So what I started to do was I would put my hand against her arm and I would keep her like propped up. Yeah. Like I because that's what you do, right? That's the disability justice principle of interdependence, right? Like this is who we are. We rely on one another, and that's just how it's what we do. And I think I told you the story about myself and two of my other friends that I have also known since we were like 4 years old. And myself and my other friend was a wheelchair user. She had cerebral palsy as well. Her cerebral palsy was more severe than mine. And then I had another I have a friend that has spina bifida who works ambulatory who would use crutches. And sometimes our friend who was a wheelchair user would end up sliding down in her seat because of the bus ride. And myself and my other friend, we each go on each on one side, and we will physically get under her arm and lift her up to make sure that until her age got to school, she wasn't going to slide out of her chair either.
Yeah. It sounds like, I mean, in those stories and in just other stories that you've shared with me, that interdependence has been a super important part of your life for many years, and it's very clear in the book. Alyssa also said, I love the interweaving of chosen family too. And so another thing that stuck out to me about that is that I think sometimes when we talk about interdependence, we're talking about like getting needs met only, or, you know, working to make sure that people are safe. But you also show in this book a lot of examples of how interdependence can be really fun and can be about taking risks. So could you tell us a little bit more about what it was like to write Adeline as a character who is disabled and a daredevil?
So I have it in a daredevil. If I was so I wrote Adeline as if like I was Adeline's age, you know, it's something that I would love to do. Um, I watched the closing ceremony of the Paralympics on Sunday, and in the handover to Los Angeles, they were showing wheelchair users at the skate park, and I was so excited to see that because I'm like, oh my gosh, this is my book. This is what Adeline would want to grow up and do, right? She wants to grow up and do like some like Olympic like skateboarding or some kind of form of that. So I wrote Adeline like this is something I would love to do. If I had more opportunity when I was younger, I would totally be a daredevil like her. And like I wanted to make Adeline a quote unquote normal kid without erasing her disability and her disabled identity. It was super important to walk that line between yes, Adeline is disabled, yes, Adeline is a wheelchair user, but also Adeline is a kid and wants to have fun. And both things can be true at the same time.
And are for so many young readers and adults, really. But thinking about the writing process, I'd love to ask you one of the questions that Nico asked in the chat. What was the easiest and most fun part of the writing process for you?
I don't know, there was one, but no, I think just making her such a daredevil, making her so outgoing, but at the same time honoring the complexity of her feelings. I think that was so important to me, again, because I wanted it to be that she can want to go up and down these ramps as fast as she can, but also not understand why everything is not as inclusive as that.
Absolutely. And you really captured that child mindset of like, but things can just be different. So let's just make them different. And then also we got to see in the book, I don't think this is too much of a spoiler. You should absolutely read and enjoy this moment for yourself. But you get to see her succeed in some of those things and being able to create that world that she wants to see. Maybe with the Go Anywhere wheelchair someday.
I would love that. That would be amazing. Yeah.
What was it like for you as a disabled author? This is the other question from Nico. How can the writing process be more accessible and inclusive to disabled writers?
I think that's a very nuanced question. I don't know if I have the answer to that. I think because there were a lot of barriers that I faced myself. Just getting the person on the other end, the editor, and I went through too, getting them to understand why certain things are so important. Why are these things so important? Why is it so important to me to have access needs in the book?
Mm-hmm.
Why are we talking about the layout of the classroom? Why are we mentioning that the only place Adeline can sit in the lunchroom is at the end of the table? I think getting whoever you're writing for to understand, be an editor, a publisher, or even the reader to understand why those things are important. I think if we have a more, if we are met with more open mindedness, that would help tremendously.
That makes a ton of
And sorry, and less ableism as well.
Yeah. If there was a change that you could make to the like writing and publication process for disabled writers in the future, what would it be?
More disabled editors and more disabled publishers.
That makes sense. Well, maybe we have some folks in this room who want to be editors and publishers who can go forth and do it. That would be awesome.
Sign me up when you do.
There's some books I hear that could be a good spot. Well, I know that there was a passage in the book that you wanted to share with the group that you have asked me to read, and then I would love to know after I'm finished reading, like what was inspired you to share this particular passage. But I'm going to read it out for everybody. If you're following along at home in your own book, this is on page 24. And it says, Adeline knew that people often looked at her chair and thought it prevented her from doing things, going places, or living the way non-disabled kids lived. But Adeline learned from a young age that her chair was an extension of her body. Why this section?
Because this is the book. If we have to summarize the book, this is the book. This is the book. This is what I want disabled kids, non-disabled kids, disabled girls, and non-disabled girls to understand. So many of us, I am 47 years old. I grew up with a lot of ableism. I internalized a lot of my ableism. I didn't want to be around other disabled kids because I was lumped in with kids that weren't necessarily able to do the things I was able to do. So, and that meant that I faced more ableism. And I didn't want to be lumped in with them. And I always thought my wheelchair was a hindrance until I didn't. Until I realized that my wheelchair is a part of me. My wheelchair is my extension of my body. And it really is. It's an extension. The thing that I want people to understand is the narrative of your disability does not define you is harmful. That is a harmful narrative. It does define you. It defines me. My cerebral palsy defines how I speak, how I move, how I think, all of those things. How I present in front of non-disabled people, all of that. So my disability does define me. And I picked that passage because that is a book. That is the summary of the book. People have a misconception that being a wheelchair user means that you are confined to a wheelchair. I'm not confined to a wheelchair. I'm not even sitting in my wheelchair as we speak. I'm sitting in my office chair. There are ambulatory wheelchair users, right? It's important, but being in my wheelchair gives me the freedom to move around, to go places, to be independent. And that is why that package is so important.
Absolutely. It's so powerful to read how clearly Adeline feels that way as a young person. If you could go back and tell anything to yourself at Adeline's age, what do you think you would say?
But I'm gonna be famous just like I wanna be. I always I always wanted, I think we all do at a young age, right? We all want that fame. But I always knew what my purpose here was on earth. I told my adopted mother at 8 years old, I said, I was put on this earth to speak for those who can't speak for themselves. I always knew that. So I would go back and tell her, you're right. That is your purpose. And that's what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And yeah, you'll be famous for it.
Wow. That all of the stories that you're sharing tonight and all the stories of Adeline, it feels like it really has, like, this book is a culmination of your life until this point. Like every piece of these stories you're able to bring in are so powerful, both for Adeline as a young person, but also for people of all ages to be able to hold and hear these stories.
And that's what I want to do. I want to empower, especially young, disabled, brown, black, indigenous children to see themselves in that story. To know that their wheelchair, their mobility aid is there as an extension of themselves to help them. It is not something that will, hinder them from. And you say, well, it will hinder. Well, yes, okay, fine. The world is not accessible for everything. We know that. The world is not made for us. But I want young disabled people to be empowered by Adeline, to feel like they can be daredevils like Adeline is.
Absolutely. What do you think if young Mary of Adeline's age could see you now? What do you think she would say to you?
I'm not sure because I grew up very sheltered. I was very, very sheltered from a young age. I don't know if I would be too outspoken for her. Um, she might have been a little weirded out by me, but at the same time, be like, wow, I want to be like her.
Totally. That makes a lot of sense. And to have that, I mean, something that you've been speaking to since the beginning, is having that like possibility model and being able to see like, oh, this is a way that I can be a brown disabled adult who's outspoken and who's a daredevil in her own right, I would say.
I feel like I've lost that little bit of daredevil in me, but it makes me happy to maybe be recuperating a little bit of that identity now
Yeah.
with this book. Because the biggest adventure I've gone on in the past 3 years is writing this book.
That makes sense. Well, and I knew some of the things that ER introduced when they did your bio, but I did not know all of those things. As someone who's put out a pretty prolific amount of work, and is a writer in many different ways, what is it like to have your words out as a book rather than like on social media or on the internet? Is it different?
It's different because, up until this point, my audience was adults, right? Like disabled adults, young people. So now that my audience has shifted, I think that was one of the biggest challenges for me was how do I change this wording that I'm so used to using in the adult world and now cater it to younger readers.
Yeah. Were there any things that like really had to change from your first draft to cater to younger readers a little bit more?
Well, so originally this book was going to be a picture book. So the language was a lot simpler, except for access needs. It was a lot simpler. And then we changed it, to 7 to 10 year olds. And then it was like, okay, I can add a little bit advocacy flavor in there, but like make sure it is age appropriate. Like I can say that this book is a disability justice book because it is. But I'll give you the biggest example. My adult bio was not palatable enough to go in the book. So I had to come up with a kid-friendly bio to go in the book.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We have a good question from Dom coming in. And I love these audience questions. I could ask Mary questions until the cows come home because she's great to talk to. But if you have questions for Mary, I would love to see them in the chat and I will incorporate them. But Dom asked, what was it like seeing the visual of Adeline when it came back from the illustrator, when you got to meet her in cartoon form?
So the coolest thing about seeing Adeline visually was that I got different samples of like what her hair will look like, what her eyes will look like, what her nose will look like, her mouth. So I was like, okay, I want this hair, this eyes, this nose, her mouth like this. And then when I saw her, I was like, she's perfect. She's me. She's real Mary. And that was the idea, right? I wanted her to look like me because selfishly, this is my book. So I was like, she needs to look like me. I have a slight resemblance to me. But seeing her for the first time, and it also being very meticulous, I went back and forth many times with the illustrator about the motorized wheelchair. Because I was like, this has to look like a motorized wheelchair that a 7-year-old would sit in. I didn't want a generic drawing of a wheelchair. I was very adamant. I was like, no, she's 7 for herself right now in her moment in life. She's very girly. That could change when she gets older. But I was also very girly at 7 with the dresses and all of that. So I wanted her to have a pink hair. I wanted the hair to be realistic. I wanted her to look like me. I absolutely adore how she came out. I love it, and the first time I saw her, I cried. It was just perfect. So beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah, the illustrations are incredible. And I know that we've talked about how important it was to you to have the realistic wheelchair and how you don't get to see that as often in illustrations, that it's more than like the hospital kind of like transport wheelchair, and that this like she could not be at the skate park in that kind of a wheelchair. That kind of wheelchair is not always felt as an extension of a body. It's more of a tool than the relationship that she clearly has in illustrations and in the writing.
Yeah, I wanted it to be authentic. I wanted it to be as authentic as possible. And I know that, we might have missed the mark in a few places, but I think overall, who I am as a person and as a writer, I hope it came through in the words in the book.
Absolutely. Absolutely. At least as one reader, I definitely felt that way. What would you I lost my question. So sorry. I got sucked up into the moment. You've said a couple of things and definitely like noted some things that you hope people take away, but imagining that a kid just encounters this in like a library or a classroom and picks it up and gets to read about Adeline, what do you hope that they take away from that experience?
That they will be kind to someone that does not look like them. That they will be kind. That they will be, like, they'll be curious, but curious in a polite way, in a good way. Not in the what's wrong with you kind of way, but like learning that there are people that look different than them, sound different than them. Because again, in my personal experience, even as an adult with a disability, is that the lack of exposure to disability really affects and shapes how people treat a disabled individual. And that starts from a very young age because I have neighbors that live in my building who um they have a four I think she's a 5-year-old, a 6-year-old, and 11. When they moved in they were 4, 5, and 10. And they have loved me from day one. It never felt like, what's wrong with her. It was like, the real one was so cute. Hi, Miss Mary. Hi, Miss Mary. Like, if I stuck my head out the door, it'd be like, Mommy, Miss Mary, Miss Mary. And just, I remember the 11-year-old coming to my door and being like, Miss Mary, I finished your book. I love it. It was so good. And like, that's what I want, right? Like, and I realized that they understood without understanding, they understood disability. But I think it helped further that understanding, right? And that's what I want. I want the average kid to say, okay, now I want to meet someone who's a wheelchair user. Maybe I can, hang out with them. I go skate park with them.
Yeah, absolutely. That people who look different or use mobility aids also want to do those fun, cool things.
Exactly. I mean, I missed out on a lot of parties when I was in elementary school because people live in houses with stairs. So I wasn't even invited, and it was like, I want, so without giving away too much of a book, I want disabled kids to go to parties. I want them to be included without it being a big deal.
Yeah. And that is just a casual, easeful part of getting to go to a party and having fun with your friends. Well, when you said I don't want to give away too much, it reminded me of a very important question. You're in the middle of writing a sequel to this book. What is next for Adeline? Where is she headed?
Space camp.
Oh my God. That is like a childhood dream.
For all of us. For all of us. That is something we always, and let me tell you, growing up in the 80s, even more so. Like, that was a big deal in the 80s to go to space camp. And I was like, she's going to space camp. That would be such a fun thing. And I have included so much, so much more accessibility things in the second book. it's a series, so there's gonna be Space Jam, and there's gonna be one more after that. And if you want to see more of Adeline after the third book, you'll have to let Rojas Publishing know that you want more of Adeline and maybe see her get older. I would love to see that happen. Right now we're keeping her the same age. But in the future I would love to see her get older and go through, adolescence as a disabled person, because that's also another thing, right? But yes, she's going to Space Jam, and I will say this, she's going to be around more of her peers. And when I say that, I mean she's going to be around more disabled kids. And that is a thing for her because mostly up until this point, she's had mostly non-disabled friends. So now she has to learn as a disabled kid to be around other disabled kids. And I don't think we talk about that enough. We always talk about the opposite, right? About non-disabled kids being around disabled kids, or disabled kids being around non-disabled kids. We don't talk about dealing with that internalized ableism, which starts earlier than that age. And I think maybe that book will have more of a niche audience, but I think that book is so important, and I'm about 3/4 of the way through the manuscript. I can't wait. It will be out sometime next year.
Wow. Oh my God, I can't wait to read about Adeline at Space Camp.
I'm so excited about that one. So excited.
She's just living these childhood dreams, which is incredible to see. And you're right. I think for as few representations of disabled kids as there are, it's usually disabled kids in a non-disabled world and how they're navigating that. But like you talked about a little bit earlier, that internalized ableism of being like, oh, I'm around this group of disabled kids. Like, where do I fit? What can we all do? Are we going to be able to, do the cool, risky, fun things that I can do in this group, meeting everyone's access needs and spending time building those relationships? It can be kind of sticky to talk about.
I don't want to give away a lot, and it may not even make it into the final manuscript, so I suppose it's okay if I mention it. But I wanted to have many different disabilities in the upcoming book, the Space Jam book. So you have limb loss, you're gonna have low vision, blind, you're gonna have, kids with different disabilities. And one of the things I talk about in the book is how the boy in Space Jam who has limb loss, how he draws with a pencil in his mouth. And I actually have a funny story about that. I have a friend that I've known since we were 4. All of my friends I've known since we were 4, because in Miami, if you had a physical disability, there was a preschool program that was actually through a public elementary school. So we all went to preschool together, right?
Cool.
And I have known him since preschool. And when we were in elementary school, that's how he drew. He drew with a pencil in his mouth. In summer school, we were bored, and we would unwrap crayons, like the fat crayons, and we would dare him to eat them.
Oh, kids doing kid things.
That's what's so important about these books, right? Like doing this kid things that are just regular kid things that you're like, why? But I always am thinking about like who I grew up around, what my childhood was like, what I wanted my childhood to be like, and I want to give Adeline what I wanted my childhood to be like again, but without erasing her disability and barriers to access because we don't live in a utopian world. Now, what she will have to deal with in the Space Camp book is that Space Camp is a utopia, right? When it comes to accessibility. And she's gonna have to reconcile why is it when I'm not here, things are not accessible, but when I'm here, things are really accessible.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, and she reconciles with that a little bit in this first book as well. Just in her, she has such a rich imagination, and her and Maya have so many schemes and plans and so much belief in themselves that they can bring to fruition the things that they are dreaming. And then to have very real, there's a pretty emotional scene in the book where she's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that. And I think that that moment for Maya is really interesting also, of Maya being like, oh wait, there is some like kind of harsh reality that Adeline is holding that Maya isn't always. Yeah.
And I think, for me, that was a thing growing up, right? Like, I had, I had mostly non-disabled friends growing up, and like, I wanted to go, like, my friends would have, here you go, my friends would have birthday parties at an ice cream rink, and then I couldn't go. I couldn't go. I literally was not invited to many ice skating parties because they weren't accessible.
Yeah.
So you are absolutely right when you said a lot of working with books is really what I have my lived experience up until and even including now.
Absolutely. And I mean, you said in what you would change about, or what was potentially challenging in the writing process, is those moments seem really small when you're non-disabled. Like being like, why are we talking about the classroom layout? When I read that, I was like, yep, I'm not always a wheelchair user, but have been. And it sucks to sit at the end of the lunch table. That's like a very visceral feeling that disabled kids are going to relate to, and have those moments where they're like, oh my gosh, this author gets it.
Hope, but really my hope is, that disabled kids feel seen. And the disabled parents say, wow, here's a disabled adult. Parents of disabled kids saying, here's a disabled adult making my disabled child feel seen.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, we have some good questions. Oh my gosh. Okay, another one coming in. As a preschool teacher, this is from Clarice. I would love to hear more about Adeline's story starting out as a picture book and potentially being geared toward younger kids, and why that wasn't necessarily the best fit. Still so excited to buy and read the book and share with older grade level teachers at my school.
Absolutely. So with picture book, the original idea was that it was Maya's birthday party, and that Maya was going to ask her dad to build a ramp to go into her house so that um, Adeline could not only go to her party, but also like spend sleepovers there instead of only Maya going to Adeline's house, right? And I don't know why that changed. You would have to ask Rojas Publishing why that changed. I really love the idea of a picture book, but I also love. I know preschool is a hard age. I taught 5-year-olds. I know 4 or 5 is difficult, but the pictures I think alone in this book will get them. Even if you read a page or two a day to them, and then they're like, okay, but what happened to her? And level increased engagement, and my apologies with the teacher and me just came out there. So
that pedagogy, you have some classroom ideas, and I know that we have talked a little bit. I don't know if this is still on the docket for your plans, but I know as a former teacher, you do have ideas about how teachers could use it that you're thinking about releasing into the world potentially. Do you want to say more about that?
yeah, very vaguely. All I know is I'm going to work on a guide to how to use this book as an instructional tool, not only for parents but teachers as well. I don't know more than that, but yeah. But right now on my website, adventurousadeline.com, there are downloadables for parents and teachers that you can download for free.
Amazing. Wow. Great question. Great response. I hope to see Adeline in some classrooms. I can ask a last question and want to leave I'm going to leave like 15 seconds of space if anyone else in the audience has one last question for Mary before we turn to close. Okay, you got like 5 to 7 more seconds, and then I'm going to ask my question.
Ask your question and I'll do it.
It's time. It's time. Okay. Well, I just want to this has been a culmination of a huge amount of work. It's publishing day. As ER said, it deserves to be celebrated like a birthday. How do you want to be celebrated as an author who's bringing this out into the world? How can we celebrate you?
I just want this book to be in as many hands as possible. Follow me on social media at Mary Fashik on Instagram. Follow me there. Follow my work, not just for this book. Follow my advocacy work, which is why this book happened, because of my advocacy work. And I just would love if everyone could, once you get a book and you read a review, that would help so much. Leave a review, post something on social media if that's your thing. If not, that's fine. Yeah, and just let Low House Publishing know that you love this book and you can't wait for the second one.
Amazing. Those all sound great. I'm going to invite ER back to help close us out, but thank you so much for your generous answers and all of your wisdom.
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you both so much. This was really just a beautiful conversation. Thanks to everybody in the chat for celebrating with us. All of the suggestions that Mary had were really wonderful. We always encourage you to ask your local public library to carry the book. So you can request digitally often. You can look in if you use a digital app like Libby or Hoopla or any of those things, you can look for it and request it. So that does not require you to leave your home or do anything. You just look it up and request it as long as you have a card. That's a great little bit of advocacy you can do right from your home. And if you are somebody who physically goes to the library, you can ask the librarian in person. You say, I would really like for you to carry this book. It really is helpful, and that provides so much access to people who otherwise could not afford to come to Karis and buy a book. And it's really important, especially in terms of getting books to kids, because we know that children encounter books in libraries more than almost anywhere else. So that's one more little piece of advocacy. And of course, we would love for you tonight to buy Adventurous Adeline from Karis. So you can do that by clicking the teal button at the bottom center of the screen. It's this long, it looks kind of like a long pill. So click that, and that will take you to be able to buy it. And it makes a great gift. So, as school has just started back, maybe there's a young person in your life that you want to give it to, or you could also donate it to a school that you went to and their library. So, those are some ideas for you. It really does help Karis when you buy event books from us. So, thank you. I want to thank everybody at New Disabled South. Thank you especially to Dom for bringing this wonderful event to our attention and for making it happen so quickly. Thank you to the person who is doing the real-time human captions. I appreciate you. I don't know your name, but I appreciate you. And I want to let folks know that this will be added to Karis's YouTube channel. So if there are folks that you wish had been here tonight, you can let them know that it's going to be up in the next day or so. And that is just youtube.com/Karis Circle. And we would love to get Mary more attention on this book. So you can send that video out to your friends, especially your friends with young kids or your friends who are teachers, and help them find this book as well. So thank you all so much. Once again, thank you, Anna, for your wonderful stewardship of this event. And thank you, Mary, for writing this book. It's so important, and we're very honored to help you celebrate it on its birthday.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Have a great night.